Well, hello there, friends, and welcome once again to another edition of the 360 Experience podcast. I'm your host, Tim Braheem, and it is my great pleasure today to have this show be with my best friend and my wife, Liz Braheem. Now, before I continue, the first thing that I want to say is that this is not about my wife and I trying to tell you how to be in relationship. This is not about my wife and I trying to tell you how great our relationship is, because it certainly has its flaws, its challenges, and the things that we are working on. This is about us sitting down together, unscripted, and talking a little bit about some of the things that we've learned in the 6.5 years of being in relationship together that I think are important, and things that I think that we have experienced as having a very positive impact on not only our marriage, but most importantly, our friendship. We're going to talk today about the importance of communication. We're going to get into some details, and I'm going to share with you some things that we do to ensure that our communication is enhanced. We're going to talk about the need to have vulnerability in relationship in order for there to be connection, and for that vulnerability to take place in the communication that takes place between you and anybody in your life. It could be your love partner, it could be your child, or it could be a best friend. We're going to talk about how we edit ourselves. Liz is going to talk about that. And I think it's such a powerful point where we are not truly our authentic self and we edit who we are to try to win favor with another person. We're going to talk about laughter, and we're going to talk about presence and connection. And I hope that you get a lot out of it. That's the whole point. My wife, Liz, is a nurse. I met her about 6.5 years ago, a little bit more than that. We've been married for 4 years. And I'm really blessed to call her my best friend and my life partner. So without further ado, my friends, my conversation with Liz Braheem in the 360 podcast. Hey, Liz. How are you?
Hey, Tim. Fancy meeting you here.
Yeah, it's been a while. How have you been?
I'm good.
And never has it been more apparent than that we're in two different locations than today, right? Like, I look like I don't know, I'm in a very dark, let's just say that. And
You're very dark, and I'm very white.
and it's like, what's the temperature there where you're at right now?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's 30 by now. I don't know. Maybe not quite, but
a balmy 30 degrees. Yeah, it's about three times that here. So I think that one of the things that we should probably talk about, we're going to talk about a lot of things today and just bounce around and let this unfold organically, but maybe we should establish, like the tenure of our relationship and how it's an unusual relationship. I mean, we've been together for going on 7 years, met before COVID.
Yes.
You're a Utah lady from the mountains. I'm a California guy from the beach, and we have a very fragmented life in a lot of ways, right? I mean, we're together about 60% of the time and not together 40% of the time if you figure it all out over the course of a year. And you're at home with the kiddos in Utah, and I'm down here in Costa Rica. So I think I was thinking about it, I was like, that's like a really important footnote, right? Like to underpin the dialogue, because I think that a lot of what we've experienced in our relationship that we've found to be meaningful and valuable is somewhat due to that separateness. I mean, let's start with...
I think it has a lot to do with it.
You do?
Yeah, it's required a lot of us in our relationship. And I think a lot of our dynamic has evolved from our separateness.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
honestly,
I never really thought of it this way, but I mean, it just occurred to me that like there's a consistent recommitment that we're making to each other every single month, right? It's like we separate, we're not together for a couple of weeks. That separateness has its own set of dynamics. But I want to start with communication, because I think that communication is such an important part of life, an important part of business and relationship. And honestly, it's like some of us have not had great training when it comes to communication, right? Like from our family backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a really good communicator now, but like when I first met you, it was not so easy for you, right?
No, and I was always told that I was not a good communicator. And when you say like, not good training in communication, I think it's just a lack, like a void of training. I don't even think I had any guidance in communication. And from my background and cultural background and history, my first marriage and everything like that, I was always told I was not a good communicator. And what I have discovered is I don't think I was just ever given the chance to communicate.
Meaning that your voice wasn't important?
Yes. And like, I mean, being, I would say, very consistently gaslit. But back then, we didn't even know what that was. There was no name for it until really just a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And so it was like a constant self-questioning and like, I must be crazy. I can't make sense of what I'm trying to say. But as I've discovered, I make perfect sense. Just the other person receiving it, getting it all twisted.
Especially if you've had a couple of glasses of wine, then you make a lot of sense.
I make so much sense.
So
and I have a lot of opinions.
Let's talk about gaslighting for a minute, because like I don't want to presume that everybody listening really even knows what that term means. What do you view gaslighting as being?
If I can articulate it, gaslighting is when the person on the other end of the communication turns what's being said to be against the person who's actually saying the words. It's like spinning a communication so that the person who's communicating ends up thinking they're crazy, and that reality is actually different than what they're experiencing. So for myself, I actually was like, I kind of thought I was crazy. And while I have craziness in me, this is very true. I think many of us do. I actually am fairly clear on what I'm trying to say. And I actually can say it fairly well. It's taken practice since those days back then. And that practice has happened mostly within our relationship. For me, actually, I think my practice started in the emergency room as a nurse. And I was this way a bit like on the pediatric unit because I was out of my like daily life. It was a completely different environment for me to be communicating. And I started to gain a voice in the workplace. And then I moved to the emergency room, and that voice became even louder, more robust, more like bantery. I gained more of an opinion, and I had to be like, well, I think we should do this, or this is going on. And then that has transferred more to relationships outside the workplace and into our relationship.
Yeah. So like what I'm hearing you say is that, to kind of tie that together, when you're communicating with someone that is tricky in the way they communicate back, to where they make you feel like you're wrong, or that maybe you're projecting or something along those lines, you start to second guess yourself as being a good communicator, being direct enough, being honest enough with your feelings, and you start to shut down from there because you start to feel as if what you have to say isn't important, what you have to say will be held against you, etc.
What I have to say is wrong, really. And it's not, I mean, I can be wrong and like.
Well, you are wrong.
How often am I wrong?
A lot of the time, actually. I mean, if we want to get right down to it. All right. So how's that for gaslighting?
I'll admit when I'm wrong.
I'm not even sure that's gaslighting. It's just criticism.
That's just fact.
So, all right. So I want to dive deeper into communication. We're going to talk about a few things here, but I just kind of outlined a couple of topics that I think are fun to talk about. But yeah, communication is is so critical in all relationships, and it requires, I think, a lot of bravery. And one of the things that you and I have discovered that I think we should share, and we incorporate this into our couples retreats that we host, and I incorporate it into some of my Leadership 360 retreats, is this going for a walk to communicate. And just to kind of fill everybody in, when we are together, when Liz and I are together for that 60% of the time, no matter where it is, Costa Rica, Utah, Los Angeles, on vacation, whatever, we try to make it a point. Italy. Yeah, we try to make it a point to, on a pretty much a daily basis, go for a walk. And we have no agenda for that walk other than to walk, not be on our phones, and to, in movement, just see what comes up. And what seems to, it's not seems to be, it's pretty factual at this point. I was talking to Kyle and Leah about this just the other night at dinner down here, and they've had the same experience just on this trip of doing beach walks, is that it seems to unlock something, and it seems to be less intimidating to go to places in the communication conversation that maybe we wouldn't go to if we're sitting like across from each other in a chair with the TV on, certainly our phones at the ready, et cetera. I mean, like these walks that we take, we like really connect deep and are really great friends to each other on these walks. So tell me a little bit more about what you experience on them and what your feelings are about it.
Well, it's less confrontational, for one thing. Like if you have to, and it's not like, I don't know if on these walks, if we really I mean, I guess really anything comes up on these walks, but it's less confrontational. So if for myself, if there's something that's like kind of been on my mind and I don't know, maybe like had to think about it longer, or I've hesitated to bring it up, it comes out more easily on these walks because it's just a less intimidating, a less confrontational setting. And I think movement for myself helps, like the brain and the thoughts can just flow a little bit more easily. And for myself as well, like I mean, I would say I'm a pretty good listener in general, but I would say that it also allows me to be very present with you when you have things that you need to talk about. There's just not the distraction of, phones or other things. Like we're really just present with each other. And I can be a good listener and support to you when you're communicating.
Yeah, and it's super,
I think, right?
1,000%. Like it's like one of the things that for me, and maybe someone listening says, yeah, that's me too, is sometimes I need to think through whatever it is that I'm processing, whether it be business or a relationship with a friend or a relationship with a partner or family member or whatever it is, something that's come at my worries about money, whatever it is that's on my mind. Sometimes I need to actually just think it out loud and to have
verbal process.
Yeah. And to have somebody that's just listening really helps me a lot. Like, I mean, those are super valuable for me. So like, just to frame it up a little bit more. So what we're talking about is going for intentional walks and having some, loose rules around it. Like I said, phone isn't out, walk for a good 45 minutes to an hour, one person talking, and the other person listening. I think that just kind of happens naturally with us. I mean, a lot of times we'll talk about what's going on with the kids for you and stuff like that. And I'll just be listening and asking you questions, giving you feedback. And also, like, if you want to, because we do this on the retreats, is, you could use chat or something to just come up with some great STEM sentence questions if you want to kind of orchestrate it a little bit more. I mean, we don't do that on our walks. We do it on the retreats, but I
don't even think it needs to be as facilitated as that. I think my opinion in this is like, we just started going on walks and we have been observant of the dynamic that emerges from that. We didn't start like going on walks together to like have conversations. We were just like, well, let's go on a walk, like get our steps in, let's go on a walk in the neighborhood. And we have discovered through doing that we end up having really great conversations, and we have found the value in that time together. So it's not even, so if, I can imagine maybe somebody's listening and they're like, well, gosh, I don't even know what we would talk about. Also, we go on walks and we don't say anything for like several minutes at a time. I mean, Tim and I both like to talk, so maybe there's not as much silence, but just going on a walk, even if there's nothing to be said, I think eventually over the process of practicing, then things will just start coming up, or like thoughts will just want to have a voice. I think you can be very intentional and do sentences. Sorry. But I also think you can just go for a walk together.
Yeah, it can be a very sacred time. And, I was just thinking as I was listening to you, as you know, in Italy, they have this phraseology called a passeggiata, which means to go for a walk. It's a kind of a tradition, like late in the afternoon, especially on a Sunday, you'll call a friend or a family member and say, andiamo per passeggiata, and let's go for a walk. And all that means is let's go for a walk. And you'll see people walking like with their arms locked, and they're just talking. They're just, I guess another way of saying it is they're just being friends. And I mean, I think that's a little bit about what we're talking about here is, as partners, making sure that we're not forgetting that the primary underpinning of a successful partnership in marriage is to be friends first, right? So friends go for a walk together and talk and hear each other and help each other process. I think that's a very friendly thing to do. And I think that we've never talked about this before, but I mean, I think that we got this like automatic training that we weren't necessarily expecting, and it was called COVID. So
the silver lining of COVID.
Yeah, with you being in a different state from me and you having COVID quite badly as a nurse and being at home for 6 weeks alone, we were forced to communicate a lot. I mean, it was either that or forget about each other, and we weren't really ready to do that. So we did a lot of FaceTiming during those years, during those months, I should say, and over the course of that year, which I think kind of trained us to be good communicators. I mean, to share what we were feeling, to share what was on our mind, which brought us closer together. Is that your experience, and how would you summarize that?
Yeah, it was absolutely my experience. I don't recall ever, and probably to date, have never spent as much time on the phone with a friend or on FaceTime with a friend as I spent with you during those times. And it really was, I think, because of the March, it really started the beginning of March, right? Like March 13th is when the schools closed. I remember it so crystal clear. And it wasn't until I didn't see you till May. So there were, 3 months there that we couldn't see each other face to face. And for a good portion of that, I was by myself. So, and I actually think, as I'm like thinking about this, it was a very like, I don't know if delicate is the right word, but a very, I guess I'm just going to say delicate time, because there was a lot of, like kind of social upheaval, and there was a lot of fear, and there was a lot of uncertainty. A lot of that was going on, and me having COVID and not quite knowing like, well, how's this going to end? How's this going to affect me? How long is this going to last? All of that, and kind of a little bit of the fear inside of me during that time, was a very important time to have a friend. So I think that that whole dynamic really built our friendship, not just the really long conversations or the watching Ozark on teleparty together. But it just was a very like impressionable time, I guess I would say. And I had a really great friend during that time. So
Yeah, well said. And I'm glad that I was able to be there for you. Let's go back to your breaking kind of the mold of not communicating. I'm kind of curious about that. So maybe you could share like what got you to take the plunge, so to speak, and to, because I mean, so much of the essence of communication is embedded in vulnerability. I mean, we can have cursory conversations with people all day long. That's safe. But like the real conversations that connect people and make people friends are ones that require oftentimes sharing sadness, oftentimes sharing fear, oftentimes sharing boldly as to what you need more of from the person, et cetera, desires, all of it. What got you to step into that more when that wasn't where you had come from when I first met you?
Well, it's interesting because the hesitation for me in communication comes like, and maybe others experience this as well. I don't think it's necessarily uncommon. Comes down the road in a relationship. At first, it's very easy for me to like communicate and be bold and just say all this stuff because I'm like, I don't give a shit what the other person thinks. Like, it doesn't matter. There's no history there. And there's no, like the intimacy is still growing. So that's not there as something to like worry about what the other person thinks of me.
Less when to lose, still, right? There's less to lose.
There's less to lose. And it's kind of more in that, those beginning phases of like, yeah, like I just don't give a shit. That's what comes to my mind. And so it's very easy for me to like say what I think, say what I need, say what my opinions are, banter, all of that. And it's down the road when things start to get more real, where I have found myself in the past, I'll start to edit pieces of myself to create the image or the person that I have detected the other person wants. Ugh, that's really gross, actually. And I've known this by saying it out loud.
That's really powerful, and I think that applies to most people. Say that again. That's important.
As the relationship develops for me, and there's more to lose, I'm very keen in this way that I will pick up what the other person wants, and I will start to edit myself to become what I perceive the other person is wanting. And
the loss of identity, the loss of true identity, right? And the forming
of my own authenticity.
Yeah, a lot better said. Yeah. Loss of authenticity and the forming of a false identity of who you really are. Yeah. That happens a lot though, right? Like, I mean, when you think back to the retreats, I don't know that anybody said it this directly, but I think that we've witnessed it, that like day one, the couples that show up on retreat are very different than day 10. And what I think transforms is I see more silliness. I see more laughter. I see more letting go and not giving a shit as much, to your point.
That wall and that like pretense starts to dissolve a little bit.
More, and that doesn't, that as we're talking this through, like what we're dealing with is like the trust to let go and be you versus the fear that requires one to edit themselves, as you said. So it would seem that like the requirement is safety, right? Like, I mean, the other person in the relationship needs to create a safe space for that person to be unglued. And a great example that I don't think we ever talked about this, but like that very first time that we were together in California, we went and climbed that sand dune. And then on the way back, we were driving to go to the airport, and there was a song on the radio, and I was there was a song playing in the car. Probably wasn't on the radio. It was probably on my phone. I'm not like 180 years old here. There was a song playing.
Cozy FM.
Yeah, exactly. There's a song. It's AM.
You can admit it, Tim. You're right. It is AM, but you can admit it. It's okay. This is a safe space.
So we're driving, and I liked this song, and I started to kind of sing it a little bit, like just a tiny bit. And you were like encouraging me to like belt it out, like, come on, let's hear it, sing it. And I was
I don't remember this.
and
I'm
I'm
so
like,
glad you're
there's
bringing
no
this up.
chance I'm singing for this chick. I hardly even know her. Like, I feel totally like I've got a terrible voice. She's going to never want to see me again. Like, I mean, all these things are racing through my mind. And yet now I'm a complete dork around you. Like, I mean,
Yes, you are.
I do some stuff that I wouldn't admit to anybody in your presence when it's just me and you. And in terms of being silly, being goofy, talking in weird voices, all that kind of stuff. And it's really fucking freeing. I mean, like at the end of the day, like I just feel like, wow, like I can be. So thank you, first of all, as my friend, for creating that
You're
space.
welcome.
But like, what would you say about any of that? Like, I mean, I think that you've got some dorky dance moves that you show me sometimes too. So.
Very dorky. And actually, it's taken me 6.5 years to bring out that dance move I did the other week in Costa Rica in the kitchen.
That one was one that I probably would tuck back away. I understand why I was gone for a while.
You can't tuck it away. It's so amazing. It's really just, you've met my friend Alexis, but you don't know her well. But that one, I have to give her the credit for that. And I don't know how we developed that in our early 20s. But what I would say is I would you had asked me just a little bit ago about like what, I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, like
what it took for you to take those first steps to going.
The first steps of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will give myself some credit, of course, but I'm going to give you a lot of credit as well, because while I did a lot of work.
It's well deserved. So I'm glad you're finally acknowledging
for that credit.
I deserve all the credit. I deserve all the credit.
All the credit.
Just so we're clear. Okay.
Not quite all. But I had done a lot of work with, my therapist and reading, just all the kind of things, and journaling to become reacquainted with my own intuition and like my own insides, so that I could better recognize when I was editing myself, because before I was so practiced at it that like I wouldn't even get a feeling inside. I would just, I would get to the end of the road and be like, wow, how did I get here? But I was able to better recognize when I was doing it. And I would get if I'm just like, I feel it now a little bit, I would get a feeling inside. And I would have to like have a conversation with myself about it. And then I would have to have a conversation with you. Can
you give us an example? I feel like we're in a little bit in the ethereal realm here. Like, let's get, if we can, a little bit specific. What's one way that you, in the past or even presently, edit yourself with me? And then what do you do to, when you recognize it, what's your process for then turning around and saying, all right, let me completely shatter this mold and be authentic?
Yeah, unfortunately, my memory is like so not great that the specifics escape me. But one memory that's coming up for me is, and I don't remember, we were in your TV room in Malibu. And I think the kids were there, actually. I don't exactly remember like what the topic was, but I said like the classic, yeah, it's fine. I said, yeah, it's fine. I don't remember what was fine or what wasn't fine, but I said, yeah, it's fine. And I could just feel inside like this, it's not fine, but I'm going to say it's fine because I don't want to appear a certain way, or I don't want to like cause problems or whatever it was. And you picked up on it. And I remember you asked me, and I sat there and I was like, yeah, actually, I don't feel okay. And it was very terrifying for me to say that because I was afraid of rejection. And we went out onto the couch. I think we left the kids in watching whatever we were watching. we went out and sat on the couch in the living room, like on the end of that wonderful couch. And I had to talk to you about it. And you didn't get upset. You didn't flip it on me. You just were like still. And you created a safe place for me to tell you what I actually thought and what I actually felt. And I wish I could remember like what the actual topic was.
I vaguely remember it, but we got into some kind of a dispute about something, which doesn't happen very often for us. I mean, you know, occasionally we'll have a disagreement about something, but this was like one of our early ones where like it was a little, 5-minute disagreement, and wouldn't even call it an argument, as I recall. And then I turned around and ended up apologizing to you for whatever I said. And then you said, no, it's fine. And then you realized, no, actually, it's not fine. I need to like express myself as to what I'm feeling right now. And, that's brave. I mean, that's like such a brave act to, especially when, like, this goes back to, we're kind of tying this together. This goes back to what we were saying in the beginning. Like, there's more on the line. Like the more the heart's invested in a relationship, whether it be with a partner, a child, the closer the friend, there's more on the line to speaking our truth, because we're afraid.
There's more to lose.
Yeah. We're afraid we could lose the connection in that relationship, and we all want connection. And yes, I do remember holding for you. And like, I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think that's something that I'm always having to work on. I think I've gotten way better than I was in previous relationships where I was more steeped in righteousness, more like wanting to defend my position, more argumentative.
Well, also like you can be very intense. Like you just can. And the ability for training about.
I'll take a drink of water with that. Go ahead, keep going. I don't know where this is going.
No, like, and so I'm giving you credit. So the ability to you're very decisive, and you know what you think about things. Yeah. So the ability for you to just be able to like take a step back and hold space for somebody else, or let somebody else like, have the stage, if you will, to be able to speak what is going on. And I'm going to speak for myself, what was going on inside of me. I imagine it took a lot of practice. I mean, and you did it beautifully, honestly, because we were able to have the exchange. And whenever we have those kinds of exchanges, 100% of the time, and I can say that with 100% certainty, we are closer after.
Yeah.
It's happened every single time.
So let's walk this back. I like to do summaries of things for people to digest. So neither of us would say that we were taught in our upbringing how to communicate. Your dynamic was different than mine. In my dynamic, it was a very much an argumentative family. Like, I mean, we had a lot of passion, raised voices, easy to be shut down by a louder voice, which makes it a lot easier to just be like, screw it. Like, I'm just going to shut down, which in earlier relationships in my life with significant partners, that was I called it like taking my toys and going home, right? Like if there was an argument, then I would shut down and I would detach and emotionally abandon my partner instead of bravely communicating, hey, here's what I'm feeling right now, et cetera. And then, I had to work on being a better listener and being more present. I think that, that really requires a lot of intention. One of the things I think that's very cool that we do that people can pick up on is, about every 6 months, I mean, we don't necessarily have it rigidly scheduled, but it ends up being about every 6 months, we shut everything down on a Sunday or a Saturday for the entire day. And from, early in the morning after we have our breakfast, we put on music, we go into the bedroom, we close down everything, we light candles, and we just hang out and connect for an entire day and communicate and listen to each other for extended periods of time. And that is such a beautiful experience that I think has had a huge impact on the evolution of our friendship. And it's got to be intentional. Like, if you don't,
For sure.
if you don't work on things, if you don't work on being a better listener, if you don't work on being more present, if you don't work on asking more open-ended questions, if you don't work on connection, how can you expect it to happen in the madness of all that's going on in our world and in our heads all the time? What more would you say about that? Would you add any color to that?
I would just say, like, it's not magic. Like, it doesn't just happen. Like, the depth of connection, the vulnerability, the friendship, all of that, it doesn't just come by magic. We have to work at it. I mean, we have to be very intentional with setting those days apart. And I think for us, we have to, I can't judge if it's more than other people, but because of our unique dynamic of not being together all the time, I would say, like, we have to be very intentional about it. We have, like, 40% of the time we have, I don't know of two lives that could be more different. Like, they're very different.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come together and it's like hyper concentrated time. Like, we're, doing the same things at the same time, and we're in the same place. And it's very, I don't know, kind of like bipolar in its flow. And I'm very busy with kids and other things, life. And I mean, I work, but it's not like the busiest job. When I'm not with you and you're very, busy with work, and you really dive into that when we're not together. And not only we're not physically apart, we're like emotionally apart. So we have to be very intentional with, like, coming together. We talk every evening, but it's not just magic. And it takes us also some time, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, to reconnect when we come back together physically, when we're in the same space. And that also has to be very intentional. It's not magic. It takes work, and it takes intention, and it takes conscious thought and effort.
Yeah. So for those listening that are kind of wondering, like, what is that experience like? I mean, Liz did a good job of just describing it. And I just would add that, like, we have these blocks of time for, say, 15, 16 days in a row, like we just had, and we're like best friends and very locked in. And then we go through, and this happens every month and sometimes twice a month, saying goodbye, which is never easy. And then there's a process of disconnecting. And then when we come back together, we have to work on reconnecting. Now, I realize that almost everybody listening to this doesn't have that experience in their world. There are negatives to it that I've just highlighted, and then I think that there are actual benefits. And the benefits are that we really cherish the time together, and we miss each other pretty consistently. And I don't think missing each other is necessarily a bad thing, because it helps, keep an appreciation and a gratitude for the friendship and the relationship. What I do think is interesting to explore is, in a normal traditional relationship, when two people are together consistently, it seems to me, having been in those relationships before, that it's very easy to take for granted the other person. We don't necessarily have that challenge, right? Because, like, we're not together some of the time, so we really don't take each other for granted. So in a traditional relationship, how does one build in some of these mechanisms to be able to consistently reignite appreciation for their partner? And I think that one of the ways that can be done is having intentional time alone, which I don't think that a lot of relationships have a lot of that, let me rephrase that, intentional time alone and intentional time where it's just them, right? So like we have this situation where 50% of the time, because sometimes we have the kids with us, but 50% of the time, it's just us, just me and you being friends. And that is like a superpower of our relationship, in that we have this fortified connection when we're together. And in a traditional relationship with kids, you got to work for that, right? Like you got to schedule the date nights or the weekend getaways or those things that can be really important to the longevity of the relationship. And then I think also there's the issue of being alone with oneself. And that's something that we've never talked about that I'd like you to comment on, because when we first met each other, you had a lot of anxiety around being alone, like truly alone. You're a social person, you're outgoing, and then COVID happened, and you were thrown pretty head first into the fire of one of your great fears, which is, you're in this new relationship with me. I'm 2 states away. You don't know where is this going now that we can't see each other, and you couldn't be with the kids, and you just had to be in the house for 6 weeks by yourself. And I think that it changed you a lot. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of growth in you as a result of that experience. And I have, as you know, spent a lot of time alone, like over the course of the last 15 years, doing a lot of retreats, traveling different parts of the world by myself. And I know how much I've grown from that. So I think that that's a key thing for people to also consider building into a healthy relationship, is like, where's our alone time for us to just be us and to learn about ourselves? Go with it from there. I'm sure you have a lot to say.
I always have a lot to say. It's actually very interesting for you to reflect that to me, because I've never thought about it in terms of like how COVID changed me. I did, I guess, start to appreciate the time with just myself. And, during that time, I read a lot of books, which, you know me, I'm like the biggest nerd when it comes to reading. And I have a couple of thoughts. I'm going to try and make them a little bit organized. If I talk about, first off, I agree with you. Having time with oneself, I believe, is vital. It's vital to that person's growth. The longest relationship I'm ever going to be in is with myself. I've been with myself through every hard time, through every blissful time, and I will be the one with myself all the way to the end. And having a friendship with myself, knowing myself, becoming acquainted with parts of myself that have been, edited in the past that I brought back, is very important. Because I think that 2 whole individuals make a more whole partnership. And I still, I crave alone time, and I still fear alone time. I think I crave, like, sometimes physical aloneness, just being in my own company. And I think I still have fear of emotional aloneness. And I think that that's normal. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The beautiful thing is I haven't had, despite our physical distance, I have not had much emotional alone time in our relationship. And I'm saying that like as a positive thing, like I have not been emotionally abandoned.
We could try that next week if you want, just to see what happens, how it feels for you.
Sure. Then we'll see if I pick up the phone when you call.
Call you for 3 days and leave you
Sure.
wondering.
If you want to risk that, that's fine. I mean, it's, yeah, I have not been emotionally abandoned like I have in the past. And that's been a beautiful thing, which I think makes our distance possible, right? Like if we weren't emotionally connected, even when we weren't together, we wouldn't be together, period. It just wouldn't even make sense. So, through the evolution of our relationship, I would say that I have come to really love my time with myself. And I actually don't get a lot of time with just myself. The time I have by myself is when I am traveling in the airport and on the airplane, because I come right home and I jump into being with my kids and family and all of that. And as one of my dear friends told me, she's like, treat that time that you're alone traveling like as a gift instead of, like, well, I have to leave my best friend and my love and my husband and all of that, or I'm leaving my children. Treat that time as like your time just with Liz. And that's when your vacation, if you want to say it that way, starts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting, like, stringing some seeds of things that you've said together. So,
yeah. So I'm not very cohesive.
No, from the beginning, from like a half hour ago or whatever. So yeah. You've found that in that time alone, especially when you were not emotionally alone, but physically alone during those 6 weeks, and we didn't talk 24 hours a day, you had plenty of time during that stretch where you were alone, you were journaling, you're reading. It's in those times that I've found that that's when I learn a lot about me. Like when I'm just with me, I learn to observe my thoughts. I learn to observe my emotions. I learn to observe my needs and the games that I play. So I would imagine that this, you talk about editing, which is such a really important topic. Like, how am I contorting who I am? But like, let's not forget that you had enough self-awareness to see yourself doing that, where a lot of people just do that and are constantly editing themselves. And then from there, they're asleep to it. So they don't even know what they're doing, and they don't know about the dysfunction that's creating and the challenges it's creating for them in their life. And then, oftentimes when people edit, I'm sure that you would agree with this, is that then they're angry with the other person because they're not able to be who they really want to be in the relationship. They're constantly editing themselves and showing up differently than they want to. But the person that they're really angry with is them for abandoning themselves, for becoming somebody that they truly don't want to be. And in your example of, yes, everything's fine. Like if you would have just left it there would have been resentment, like probably for me and for yourself for not speaking your truth. So that's why it's so important. Let's talk about trust, because I don't trust you at all.
We're going to hash that out on here.
We're going to hash it out here, yeah.
Perfect. Let's do it.
No, I trust you like more than I've ever trusted any human being in my life. Like, I mean, and in the nature of our dynamic of, being apart a lot, that's like a really necessary component, probably more than a normal relationship. It's super, super necessary to have trust. Yeah. And a friend of mine, I think I've shared this with you before, a friend of mine, Cheryl, once said to me when I was single, she said, Tim, what's more important than love is trust, because without trust, there is no love. And that's such a profound statement. Like if you don't trust another human being, how are you going to possibly lower your guard enough for your heart to be open to truly love them, right? Like you're going to be constantly in the subconscious mind or even in the conscious mind, like working to keep yourself safe. So we've never really talked about this. I mean, like we don't have a dynamic, to the best of my knowledge, and only you would know from your side of it, where there's any lack of trust. Like I don't think about like, wonder what she's doing right now. I don't worry about who you're texting on your phone. I don't, that doesn't even cross my mind. Where do you think that comes from? I mean, because there are so many relationships out there that lack trust between two people, and it's impossible for that connection to be as deep as it's capable of being if there's that lack of trust in there.
It's such a great question. And we haven't really talked about, like, we've talked about that we trust each other, but I don't think we've really like dissected why that is. And what just came up for me when you said that was, I believe it's because we have such what I would call a profound friendship. And, for all the things we talked about in developing that friendships early on, I regard you so highly as a friend, and the love I have for you I love you in all of the ways, but in the way that I love you as a friend, I wouldn't want to hurt you. And this just came up, I also love myself probably more than I have before. And it is not honoring of myself to do something that would break trust with my best friend. So
yeah, it always comes right back to you, doesn't it? It's like a boomerang. Like, you don't get away with anything.
Yeah,
really.
like, and it's not even just like getting away with it. Like the feeling of breaking somebody's trust and deeply hurting and wounding somebody that you truly care about. It wouldn't feel good to you, but it doesn't feel good to me.
Well, like even if you just take keep circling back to this example because it's such a good one. If you would have just stuck with, yeah, it's fine. And then you wouldn't have said, actually, no, it's not fine. Can we go out in the living room and talk about it? What happens a lot in relationships, I think, I've experienced this more times than I can count, is, yeah, it's fine. And then later on, because that person's angry with themselves more than even the other person, they will then lash out in some way and maybe bring it up. Like, what you said to me, 3 months ago, that really hurt me. And it's like, whoa, you said 3 months ago that it was fine. Okay. I mean, that kind of stuff happens a lot in relationships. It's like, now trust has been broken. Like, I don't trust you that when you tell me that it's fine, because you just made me pay a penalty because you edited yourself and then realized 3 months later you're still pissed off about it and you lashed out at me. And I bring this up because I think that trust, I think it's like there's the obvious aspects of trust, like you don't cheat on your partner, you don't violate rules of conduct between the two of you that you've agreed to. In our case, we established very early, like, we're not going to ever say like really mean shit to each other. Like, no matter how the argument is, it's like the F word towards each other is not okay. And we've done a really good job of that. But there's the little pieces of trust that can be broken that start to accumulate over time when one is not honest with their feelings with their friend. Right. So it's like, okay, you want me to be your best friend. And yet at the same time, you're not really transparent with me. You're not always vulnerable with me and now I start not trusting whether or not you're authentic with me. Right.
Yeah.
You've dealt with that with some of your friends. Like, there are a couple of friends that come to mind where you've said, you know what, like I get the edited version of them. Like they don't give me all of themselves. So then does that result in you not fully trusting them to where you can connect with them as deeply as possible?
Yeah. Well, I would say I'm actually not friends with them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. We know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about.
if that answers your question, like it breaks the relationship ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it can be just like these micro violations of trust. And if we hadn't have gone out on the couch and talked about what was really going on, I would have broken trust with myself, and it would have, broken trust with you once you found out I actually was very bothered and it wasn't fine. So, and maybe I think that you would agree with this, that keeping trust with yourself, like, you being very honest and transparent with yourself about what your needs are, what you think, feel, all of that, then that's the first place. And then it translates into our friendship, which allows me to trust you. I've never had any, let me make sure this is accurate. Like, yeah, like I've never had any worry. Let's see, the worry I've ever had about saying something to you has never been because of anything that you've ever done. It's been my own past coming up, my own history, had to be my own practice in overcoming myself to be like vulnerable and transparent. It's never been because you have violated my trust in being unsafe.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, I'm first of all, I'm happy to hear that, and it's like it's a bit of a double.
You're welcome. Well done.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword too, though, right?
Congratulations.
Because a part of me was going to say that like one of the main ways that trust is built is by knowing that the other person is authentic and vulnerable and willing to communicate anything that they're feeling, and they're straight with me, right? Like, I mean, like I don't have to, there's no games being played here. There's no gaslighting. There's no, I'm taking my toys and going home. Like I used to do all that kind of stuff. But I can imagine that if somebody's sitting and listening to this and they're engaged in a relationship where they don't feel like it's safe to be that authentic and vulnerable, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's like, the very thing that you want, the mechanism that will get you what you want, which is deeper connection through your own vulnerability and transparency, can run right up against this experience of trust. If the other party is displayed time and time again, you shouldn't trust me because I'll use that shit against you. I'll turn it around on you. I won't be present with you and really hear you. I'll make fun of your feelings. I'll be dismissive of your feelings, all those things that happen in relationships. So that's where it's like, it's really a true dual partnership that we're talking about here. Like one party needs to really honor the bravery and vulnerability of that other person and really hear them, for that person to fully step into it. And then trust is built and connection is built as a result of both parties showing up in that way.
And it's a practice.
Yeah.
It's time after time after time. And even if, there's a misstep or like a fear that gets the best of somebody, it's the continual practice of then like acknowledging that, shedding light on it, and choosing vulnerability and transparency again.
Yeah. So there's a great Netflix special that's several years old now with Brene Brown that I definitely recommend people watch on vulnerability. She's really remarkable. She's one of the best ever. She has
a way of putting it so that just anybody can grasp it.
And backed by a lot of research and statistics and stuff that really validate her teaching. So there's a book that we've never read together, but I read a long time called Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix. And Harville Hendrix is the founder of Imago therapy, which is a fairly popular therapy in the United States at this point. And it's all based upon it's based actually upon the notion that we all have, each one of us, disallowed portions of self, I believe is the term that he used, or abandoned portions. So like there's things that I feel about me that I don't like. There's things that you feel about you that you don't like. Everybody listening, same thing. Those are the parts of self that we are trying to mask or get rid of, or, you know, not
Edit.
focus on. Edit. Yeah. Thank you. That's actually great. That ties right into your editing thing. So then on a deeper level, what Hendricks talks about is that on a subconscious level, when we meet someone, before we ever even talk to them, just energetically, we are looking to work on those disowned portions of self within the context of relationship. And this is why, you know, you enter into relationships sometimes and that person is an absolute fucking expert at poking on your wound with an ice pick. I mean, they just are like, here you go, here's your work right here. And it just blows up and it's never any good. But what attracted you to that person in the first place is, I think, a very key inquiry. Like, well, wait a minute, like why would you have even been drawn to that person? Well, what Hendricks talks about is because on a subconscious level, you know that they're going to bring up your stuff for you to work on. And then what he talks about is that in an ideal partnership and a friendship that is a loving relationship, both parties recognize that wound in the other person and are there to love that part of that person that they have disowned and to help them reclaim it, which is really beautiful framing when you think about it. So, yeah, like when I was a kid, I couldn't be goofy. It was so scary. Like to the point where, you know, as I've told you, I would go into that bathroom that my mom uses now and I would lock both doors and I would like make weird faces in the mirror and talk to myself and crazy sounds and all of that. And I realized like, I just had to like get some silliness out because it wasn't safe to show that as a kid. And, you know, I carried that around with me for another 40 years, you know, until I met you. And then I meet you and you're just like all about like, bring that shit on. Like, just give me the silliest, craziest, most, you know, grotesque portions of you or whatever that you don't like. I'm going to laugh at them. I'm going to cheer you on. I'm going to pour love into those areas of you. And thank you for that. And I hope that I've done that for you, by the way. I don't know that I have, but like, what would you say about that? Like, was that something, you never read the book, so was it something that you just naturally knew? Or like, how did that work where you hear me sing in a really lame voice and you'd encourage it? Or, you know, I'd wake up with my hair sticking up and you would be like, I love your hair right now. And I'd be like, really? Like, I need to get some hair gel in here and like mat this thing down. You know, like where did that come from? Because it's like such a gift, and thank you.
You're welcome. I don't even think I would have come at it from any kind of analytical angle. Like, you ask if I read that book, since I haven't read that book, like, how did I know? It's not like I mean, yes, I've read a lot of other books in that genre, I suppose, but that's an excellent question. I don't know if I know the answer other than sometimes, like in the car when I was encouraging you to sing that song, which I wish I had a more of a crisp memory of. Like, who gives a shit? Like, who cares? Who cares if you're singing and you're like singing terribly? It's the expression that I think is so important.
Yeah, but there's so many relationships. We've witnessed them. Okay. We've watched them in action firsthand at retreats that we do and stuff, where one person is highly critical of the other person. And
yes, but it is that one person's wounds. You know what I mean? Like, I know this may be getting like a little bit deep into sticky stuff, but like, you being silly did not trigger any of my wounds. So I can encourage you to be silly because I didn't have those wounds.
Mm-hmm. Yes, no, it's absolutely right. Well, just like the story with me and Julie, right? And her twirling on the beach, that story I've told for years now of like how triggered I was. It's just me not being able to be playful, which made me feel jealous of her. So then I wanted to criticize her, right? Because she was showing me a part of me that I had disowned, right?
Correct.
Back to Harville Hendrix's theory. So the answer would be to, if there is a part of oneself that is disowned, let's just take silliness as an example. And it's hard for you to be silly. And when you watch others silly, it triggers you and you feel a need to tell them, don't be so silly, or stop being a dork, or, grow up, or whatever it is that your thing is. The self-recognition of like, oh, wow, like, why is that even showing up on my radar? Like, what reason would I not be like, oh my God, let me see more of that. You're making me laugh, right? Which is your way of treating my silliness, is like, just bring it on because it makes me laugh.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
Interrupt you.
Go, sweetie.
I was just going to say, like, I don't recall any time in my growing up where my silliness was not just like totally fine. I mean, from like, it wasn't this my growing up. It was my early 20s when that Mowgli dance that I exhibited for you the other day came about, or was like, I had really short hair my entire life and I would spike it and sing Billy Idol in the living room. And like, my mom just loved it, but I was like a total goofball. Or, like lip syncing with my sister. I mean, anything, and just like being a total dork. I'm really good at that. But it was totally fine and safe to do that as a kid. And I feel like so much, I don't know if sadness is the right word, but like compassion for your mom, because it was because of your mom telling you not to be silly because she didn't feel safe when you exhibited that. And that makes me feel a lot of compassion for her. Really. And I would say, like, when you just asked me, like, I don't know if I've done that for you. I mean, it looks differently, but I was able to, my nerdiness has come out more and more in our relationship.
Yeah, you're a total nerd. And I mean, like, full on nerd. And I love it about you. It's like, it's great. Like, I mean, in your nerdiness is a lot of intelligence, a lot of wisdom, a lot of fun, stimulating intellectual conversations about the world and cultures and history and all the weird shit, like, you like.
And it's a lot of weird shit. But like all of the, like, the nerdiness, the goofiness, the being a complete dork, like, this is a good example of how, over time, that has come out more for me with you, because I'm not worried about being rejected because of it. Like within a romantic relationship, right? So, our relationship has fostered an environment where I've stepped into and chosen to, like, bring those parts of myself out more and more within our relationship, because I'm not rejected because of it. So you have, created and fostered that environment. And man, that's coming out in full swing.
Yeah, you're getting dorkier as every year goes by. That's for sure.
You're welcome.
Let's finish up with, well, actually, no, I'm going to ask you the question at the end that I ask every guest, and I'll probably ask myself the question for the first time. So, but before we go there, let's finish up with laughter. Like I've never laughed so much in a relationship as I have with you. It's not even close. It's such an important glue, I think. And when I think of like all of my guy friends, like, and I've got a lot of guy friends. I mean, I think of Sean, here, and I think of, the twins in Italy, and I think of, Kirk and, Ronnie and Dirk, and all those guys. Like, I mean, and it's for anybody I'm missing, It's a long list. The underpinning of those relationships is laughter. Like, we laugh a lot. Like, we're always giving each other shit and bantering and silly in some cases, like with the twins. And so when you think about it, it's like I would assume not every great relationship that you have in your life as a listener of this show has laughter as a part of it. But there's probably not a lot of relationships that are bad relationships where you and that person can laugh all the time together. I mean, that's just like a glue to connection. I wonder, like, have you been in relationships that you just didn't laugh very much? Because, like, we laugh a lot. That's all I know of you is just our relationship.
For sure. I have been in relationships where laughter, I don't know, wasn't a lot of things to laugh about, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more struggle and seriousness. But we do laugh a ton.
I think that now that, I mean, we've never talked about this, but in the context of the rest of this conversation, I think it all still is about vulnerability and trust now that I think about it, because I know I make you laugh a lot. And you make me laugh a lot too. And a lot of the things that we say to each other, send to each other, text each other when we're not together are, at the end of the day, vulnerable in the sense that, like, some of the things that go through my mind, not everybody's ready to hear it. I can come up with some stuff. I mean, the other night we were together, and I was, when we were on that boat that day, and I was being kind of myself. It's really interesting now that we're talking about this because it ties in everything. I just started to let loose right at the end of the day and started saying things sarcastically out loud. And you kept leaning over and going, they're not ready for this. You need to edit yourself. Don't say that, over and over. And I'm like, yeah, but you're laughing. And that's all I really give a shit about, is that I just like making you laugh, which, by the way, is such a gift. Like, I can't even tell you what a gift it is for me to be able to say something funny and for you to laugh. Like, it makes me feel good inside that, like, I made you laugh. It makes me feel good about myself. And yet it's very vulnerable because, yeah, like, some of those people were like wet blankets that I was saying really funny shit around and they weren't laughing, and it sucked for me because, like, I wasn't getting a laugh, and I'm like, this is a dead crowd. But, like, you really bring that out in me a lot. Like, I'm doing a lot of rambling now. Go, you take over from here.
No, I would say I feel the same way. Like, whenever I get a response from you, like you laugh or you text LOL or whatever, I'm always like, oh, like it like makes me feel so good. And I'm not exactly sure like what that is and like what that really feeds. Actually, may have to like put a little bit more thought into that. Like, yes, it is, it's putting vulnerability out there and having it rewarded, I guess. But man, it's sure like, what goes through my head is like, Tim thinks I'm funny. Tim thinks I'm smart. Tim, blah, blah, blah. And it makes me feel like $1 million. But I would say that I feel incredibly fortunate to have a relationship in which there is so much laughter and banter and, sarcasm and all of that. It just like, God, what a, can I say that? What a fucking relief. It's a relief.
Yeah. So yeah. I'm thinking about, like, that's super well said. It is a relief. And it's like, okay, we've never again talked about it in this context before, but it's really interesting because I think it's all the same thing. It's what a relief. I can be me. I can be the truly unedited version of me and say things that might be inappropriate or would offend someone else, and to have my partner think it's funny and know me well enough to know that I don't mean it. I'm not a hurtful person. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I just want to laugh. Like that's, and for those listening that may say, well, I don't have a lot of laughter in my relationship, a pretty cool inquiry would be, well, like, what are you editing? And how is your partner not allowing, like what unsafety might be created by your partner? So if like you were not edited and were a little bit more unfiltered, or just brought, it doesn't even have to be dirty, right? It could just be like a funny joke that's like super clean. But like, I think that the reason—
Are super clean jokes really funny?
Not really, but like,
let's be honest here.
Okay. So it's got to have a little dirt in there.
Maybe.
But if you're holding back from bringing the silly and funny sides out of yourself, what is that blocking in the way of potential deeper connection and friendship with your partner, or with friends in your life even? I mean, it doesn't even have to be your partner. I mean, like last night, over at Don and Hank's, Daniel came by and I made a guy, teenage guy comment. I can't even repeat it on here. It's not appropriate, but just, guy stuff. Right. And I was in a group of guys that like, I don't know too well. Like Chris was there and I can't remember, Ivor was there. I haven't like bantered with those guys ever. And like Daniel turned into a little boy. Like he just was giggling. It was a total teenage boy thing that I said. He just started giggling and cracking up, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and then he came back in with something. And next thing you know, that like we're all like having fun together, but it required me taking a chance. Like I didn't know like how were these guys going to think. They're pretty buttoned up. They're pretty serious sometimes. And it opened things up. And I think that that's interesting to explore, like in relationship, like how much is your fear holding you back from taking the risk of being funny, taking the risk of being silly? And how much are you potentially creating an unsafe space for your partner to be that? And how much what's the cost of it just being so serious and intense all the time?
Yeah, I think that was such a gift that you gave, even just to Daniel, like to create that.
As you know, I give out a lot of gifts. That's kind of my.
You do.
That's
We're
what
all
I try
so
to do.
Lucky, and all so fortunate.
But make your dreams come true, Liz.
Every day, Tim. Every day. Though I said like 95%. I don't know. We might be down to 75% of my dreams, but we'll work on it.
Sorry for interrupting. You were saying what a gift it was.
I believe it truly was a gift in that environment. And I think that we've brought up a lot of interesting points of inquiry for people, for them to self-reflect and think about and ask questions of themselves. Like, what parts am I editing? What, am I holding back? And really it could be a gift in a situation. Or I wonder, what my partner is going through has them not laughing. I just think there's a lot of points of inquiry and self-reflection and places to be very curious.
What am I doing to create an environment that's not completely safe that would allow for my partner and I to have deeper connection? Because that's a good one. At the end of the day, I'm pretty certain of this, and I think you are too. It's like it actually can be so much better. Like it being like relationship, like it can be, I think, better than I realized. Like I didn't realize that I could have like this much of a friendship with my partner in the way that I do with you. And we're not perfect, obviously. And we have our stuff that we need to work through, but it's pretty damn good. So the question that I always like to ask, I'm going to give my answer for the first time after you're done. Ladies first. Sometimes. Sometimes
not. See your brain turning as saying that.
I mean, 43% of the time, ladies first.
Okay.
I'll let you go first this time.
Thank you.
If you could have a conversation with the 18-year-old version of yourself that's singing White Wedding with spiked hair, and doing your Billy Idol lip thing, did you used to like move your lip up to like?
I don't know.
Man, those of you watching on YouTube, you just got a glimpse of the silliness.
Holy smokes!
If you could talk to that young lady, what advice would you give her? If you could have a conversation with her right now as your 47-year-old self, actually you're only 40, as your 40-year-old self, you could talk to that 18-year-old version of you, what would you say to her?
Oh, that's a really beautiful question. As I think back, oh my goodness, literally what just came, I was like thinking about, okay, what was I doing at 18? I just graduated high school, starting university. And what I want to say to her is, like, this doesn't include like personal growth and whatnot. I want to tell her, like, don't change. Like, change doesn't, in this context for me, doesn't include like growth and evolution, and like honor those parts of yourself that are so fiery. Like, keep those. Do not dampen your fire for anybody else.
What's the emotion?
Isn't supposed to come up at the end of our call.
You're sad because you're going to say goodbye to me in a minute.
Yes. Just because I very much dampened my fire for others. And I would tell her not to do that. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
First of all, thank you, sweetie. I've asked this question so many times, like 75 times, and I've never even thought of what my answer would be. It's not as scary as you're making it, like all of it. Like, use your fear only as your protector, but get really clear on what really needs to be protected. There are experiences that you've had that have resulted in you feeling like you have to be protected all the time. And that's not true. It's just certain circumstances, certain people, but you don't have to have your guard up all the time. Learn how to lower it and then raise it when it's needed. In all aspects, like everything, friendship, partnership, money, business, all of it. That's the wisdom I would share. It's taken a long time to get there, but thank you for being a massive facilitator in me not being afraid to be a loving human being with my friend. It's like I think that when I look back, I wasn't capable because I was too afraid to. It takes a lot of vulnerability and courage to be able to love someone. Well, it was nice having you, Liz.
Well, see you later.
Yeah. Au revoir. I don't know. Is that even goodbye in French? I don't even know. Like, ciao.
Yeah.
I don't know when I'm going to see you again, but I hope that you're well. And
I don't know. You'd have to look at my calendar. It's scheduled in there somewhere.
Yeah. And to those of you that hung in here for an hour and, I don't know, like 20 minutes to listen to us chat, I hope that you got some value from it. And thank you very much for listening to the show. And blessings to all of you as you find deeper connection, more vulnerability in your relationships in your life. Thank you, everyone.